Hello and welcome to the Lazy Book Club podcast, the book club for those who don't want to read or leave the house. My name is Matt Gonzalez.
I'm David Cox.
And I'm Josh Matheson.
And today we're looking at chapter 2.
Pool of Tears.
Is that what the title's called?
It's called A Pool of Tears.
Well, that's a curveball.
I
It's
know.
a barrel of laugh.
We're
It's
in-
fun, isn't it?
We're in for a solemn affair.
Well, I just where did we leave her last time? She was trying to get through a door into a garden. So I was expecting the
Yeah.
garden.
Oh,
or
yeah, no.
The door.
So in brief,
Yeah.
she's got bored under a tree. She's followed a rabbit in a waistcoat. She fell down a hole for about 20 minutes.
Oh, yeah. Really slowly.
Put some marmalade back in a cupboard. She did that.
Yeah.
Then when she got to the bottom, bunch of doors she couldn't open, found a little table with a key, found a little door with a key fit.
Behind a curtain.
Behind a little
Yeah.
curtain.
I wanted to have the intricate detail of her just like having this really small like drawstring going. Like,
With a golden
That's what I
tassel.
I
imagine,
really
yeah.
want, or like some office blinds or something like that.
Then she drinks some not poison.
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Definitely
'Cause
not
it said it
poison. Because
wasn't
it said it
poison.
wasn't.
We learn that Alice is very, very careful
Yeah.
drinking.
She reads
stuff
all
she
the
found.
ingredients.
all of the decencies. Shrinks down a bit. Then she eats some cake. And that is where we got to. She's just finished off the cake.
As we all do
As we
when
all do.
there's a cake.
You've got to finish off the cake.
To be fair, Alice, I'm with
Who
Alice
has a
on that.
nibble?
This
and
is
then-
the most I've identified with
I'm
her
more
so
likely
far.
to. I'm more likely to eat the cake than drink the foreign substance.
Yeah, it's
That's it.
true. Yeah, definitely.
You trust the cake.
Particularly if it tastes of turkey and pineapple and
Coffee.
toast and whatever else was in that
And
thing.
Bad memories. and
Bad
probably,
repressed memories.
hot pokers, that was in there, wasn't it?
yeah. My family
Jesus.
don't love me.
She's a mad...
I'll never see my cat again.
Yeah.
She's as mad as a box of frogs.
Right, chapter 2. So we dive in?
We should. Chapter 2. Pool of Tears. Curiouser and curiouser, said Alice. She was so much surprised that for a moment she quite forgot how to speak good English. Now I'm opening out like the largest telescope that ever was. Goodbye, feet. For when she looked down at her...
Sorry, hang on.
Goodbye, feet. She did it. I don't know if you've ever sort of stood up.
Goodbye, feet.
I did this on the reg. I just looked down as I'm standing up and I'm like, oh look, they're getting further away. For when she looked down at her feet, they seemed to be almost out of sight. They were getting so far off.
Oh, wait,
but-
so she's flown right past her normal height.
Yeah, she's gone beyond. She ate too much cake.
She's like a giant now.
So this cake is exponentially stronger than the drink. when you
Very
think about it.
calorific.
Yeah.
Very
Oh, God,
calorific
yeah.
cake, you know?
I'm surprised they
Games.
haven't given us a measurement. Because like so far, everything's had a
Yeah.
measurement.
Well, maybe we'll get
I
one.
quite
Okay.
like.
It's
I
not-
quite like the precision that Lewis Carroll
Yeah.
does. It's quite like
Because you're
reassuring.
learning facts at the same time. Like, I didn't know that
The
it was
depth of the earth.
4,000 miles to the center of the earth. Who knew?
Who knew? He knew.
He knew.
Oh, my poor little feet. I wonder who will put on your shoes and stockings for you now, dears.
The cat probably. Oh God. Meow.
I'm sure I shan't be able. I shall be a great deal too far off to trouble myself about you. You must manage the best way you can. But I must be kind to them, thought Alice, or perhaps they won't walk the way I want to go. Let me see. I'll give them a new pair of boots every Christmas. Good.
I mean, this is just waffle now, isn't it?
Yeah,
She's just showing. But I mean, I'm trying to. So she's saying that she can't put her own shoes on. But I mean, everything's growing in proportion, right?
Surely
she's
she
not
can
just
still
like.
bend
Yeah.
She's not just like tiny
She
feet,
wouldn't be
massive.
standing. She'd have collapsed.
Tiny feet, massive body, T-Rex arms. Is that what's going on at the moment? She can't reach. Like, I'm trying to work out why.
She's still very much in proportion, and she should still be able to bend down and put her own
Well,
feet on.
exactly.
She will need new shoes though. That is true. When she goes back up, if she has, presuming.
Well, this
she
is the
stayed the
thing.
same
Well,
size.
there's
This is,
no sort of Hulk suggestion of her bursting out of her clothes.
yeah. Well, this is like 20th century shrinking as well, and growing, where your clothes grow with you.
Yeah. And she went on planning to herself how she would manage it. They must go by the carrier, she thought, and how funny it'll seem, sending presents to one's own feet, and how odd the directions will look. Alice's right foot, Esquire, hearthrug, near the fender, with Alice's love.
She probably won't need to send it by post.
Probably not. Just like, drop him.
Does
You've
she know
also
how
got-
like that works?
Well, this is before ASOS as well. Like, I send shoes to myself through the post all the time.
She's just ahead of her time.
Yeah.
It is.
But they don't
only
tell-
you knew, Alice. This is the marvels of modern life. You can send yourself shoes in the post and no one thinks you're weird.
Little
But they
did you
don't
know.
sell individual feet still. So
they don't.
if you're looking for a startup that doesn't exist, sending individual shoes.
Is this for one-legged people?
Yes. Yeah.
This is the thing. I
out
feel
there.
sorry for one-legged people because you'd think if shoes weren't assigned to a particular foot, you could get two wears.
Yeah. Oh, you definitely could. You just wear one till it's worn out and then wear the other one.
Unless you find a friend who's missing the opposite foot and then you can share.
Brilliant.
Easy
There's probably
to shop
Facebook
for,
groups
isn't
for
it?
that.
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah. That'd be, yeah. We've
Our
got a new
Facebook
app.
group. I'm missing the left. Anyone missing the right? This is...
One lefty looking for a righty. A lovely pair of clogs.
Must be UK size 11.
I found someone in Togo. Great.
Oh dear. What nonsense I'm talking.
Literally.
This next slide.
Well done, Lewis. You were here.
There we go. Just then, her head struck against the roof of the hall. In fact, she was now rather more than 9 feet tall. There's your measurement.
Ah, there we go.
And
You would
she,
come in.
there you go. And she at once took up the little golden key and hurried off to the garden door. Poor Alice! It was as much as she could do, lying down on one side to look through into the garden with one eye, but to get through was more hopeless than ever. She sat down and began to cry again.
Get it together, Alice.
I know. You ought to be ashamed of yourself, Alice, said Alice.
I'm loving these pep talks.
That's
Yeah.
so good. A great girl like you, she might well say that.
I mean, literally great right now.
So
She's
great.
9
huge.
foot. It's not as big as I was hoping.
No.
I was
No.
hoping the size of Dover.
I was thinking King Kong. Like, I want
Very
to see her
so.
climbing in an Empire State Building
Well,
or
yeah.
something. Yeah.
I mean, but we'd get into geographic issues in a hall of doors, wouldn't
Well, I
we?
mean, she's just like fallen 4,000 miles. So she has a lot of ceiling.
That's true.
She
Yeah.
can grow
The
into.
ceiling's not
It's very-
representative of the fall.
Also, I'd have looked back up that hole. I can't believe she didn't do it. She's straight down.
Yeah.
Walking out. Like,
Not
Big
even-
enough to maybe reach a cupboard, Alice.
Absolutely. She could have climbed her way back up.
Yeah.
Stop this moment, I tell you. But she went on all the same, shedding gallons of tears until there was a large pool all around her, about 4 inches deep and reaching half down the hall.
Wait, what?
She's just cried herself a puddle.
She's only 9 feet.
But is it like?
That's a lot
Is
of
this
tears.
puddle like reaching the edges of the room? Like
This
how
pud-
how wide is
look,
this space?
Lewis is very descriptive about this.
Okay.
4 inches deep, reaching half down the hall. So
Oh, okay. So it's not actually reached the wall. It's just halfway. Okay.
It's like
I
a
don't know how
tidal
something
wave.
could be 4 inches deep but just stop shy of the wall.
Yeah, well,
The
you'd think
nature
it
of
would keep
water
spreading
would
out.
keep
Unless there's like a dip in the corridor.
There maybe.
the tiler wasn't
There
very
we
good
go.
with laying the floor and it was a bit uneven.
I love these solutions you're
Yeah.
finding us, Matt. So
Tiles in
I'm on-
Wonderland
I'm
are
on-
few and far between. The
Yeah.
style and substance is good, but the standard is
it's
shoddy.
it's an uneven tile, but it
If you
does
were to-
collect water rather well. After a time, she heard a little pattering of feet in the distance.
Are these some new characters coming?
I love new characters. And she hastily dried her eyes to see what was coming. It was the White Rabbit returning, splendidly dressed, with a pair of white kid gloves in one hand and a large fan in the other. He came trotting along in a great hurry, muttering to himself as he came, "Oh, the Duchess, the Duchess! Oh, won't she be savage if I've kept her waiting?"
So, wait, hang on. So he's wearing goat gloves.
Well, it says kid gloves. I'm guessing they're made
Yeah.
out of goat fur.
Well,
not ones from
human
Kid
kids.
Cats.
Human children.
That's not too small. The Duchess will judge me.
But that's what they isn't that kid skins like leather,
probably.
leather made of. I mean, it's not very herbivore though, is it? Like if a rabbit's wearing
Well,
gloves
rabbit's
made
wearing
from
a
another
goat.
animal.
Yeah. Alice felt so desperate that she was ready to ask help of anyone. So when the rabbit came near her, she began in a low, timid voice, "If you please, sir." The rabbit started violently, dropped the white kid gloves and the fan, and scurried away into the darkness as hard as he could go.
Can I just say how fabulous is the fan?
I know why. I don't know
I'm
why
imagining a
he's got-
proper flamenco fan
with
here,
feathers on it.
Oh yeah, definitely.
He
It's
just
gonna
went as well in a flourish. He's late, but he's still faffing, isn't he?
That's
be-
it.
He's late, but he's fabulous with it.
But now he's gloveless, so
He's like, oh, the Duchess, the
Yeah.
Duchess. Maybe that's his drag name.
Plot twist.
there it is. Alice took up the fan and the gloves, and, as the hall was very hot, she kept fanning herself all the time she went on talking. Dear, dear, how queer everything is today, and yesterday things went on just as usual. I wonder if I've been changed during the night. Let me think. Was I the same when I got up this morning? I almost think I can remember feeling a little different. But if I'm not the same, the next question is, who in the world am I? Ah, that's the great puzzle.
I mean, that's very philosophical.
I mean, she's gone real deep now.
Who am I?
Who am I? Who am I? And she began thinking over all the children she knew that were of the same age as herself, to see if she could have been changed for any of them. I'm sure I'm not Ada, she said, for her hair goes in such long ringlets, and mine doesn't go in ringlets at all. And I'm sure I can't be Mabel, for I know all sorts of things, and she knows very little.
Oh, judgy.
Blimey, O'Reilly.
Label's the thick friend.
Yeah. You're no shiny button yourself there, Alice.
I wouldn't have been
Jeez.
friends with Alice at school.
Just look at the
Yeah.
predicament you're in right now, and then start judging Mabel, okay?
I could also say, like, she's not the one. Was it Mabel? Mabel's not the one sitting there trying to work out who she is.
No, exactly.
She's fine. Maybe.
Well, Mabel's loving life.
Is that-
Mabel's
is that
up on
an
the
early
surface
word?
She's having
with
a
a
great
family
time.
who loves her.
That's it. Besides, she's she and I'm I, and oh dear, how puzzling it all is. I'll try if I know all the things I used to know. Let me see. 4 times 5 is 12.
That's right.
And, and 4 times 6 is 13.
Yeah.
And 4 times 7 is, oh dear. I shall never get to 20 at that rate.
That's the answer I got in maths. Oh dear.
That's your GCSE.
yeah, just oh dear.
Taken last week.
However, the multiplication table doesn't signify. Let's try geography. London is the capital of Paris, and Paris is the capital of Rome, and Rome... No, that's all wrong, I'm certain. I must have been changed from Mabel. God, Mabel's been dragged through the mud, hasn't she?
That wouldn't be my conclusion, but there you go.
Yeah.
Well, I shouldn't be surprised by this point. So.
I mean, I'd be judging myself right now rather than thinking I turned into someone else.
I'll try and say, how doth the little... And she crossed her hands in her lap as if she was saying lessons, and began to repeat it, but her voice sounded hoarse and strange, and the words did not come the same as they used to. How doth the little crocodile improve his shining tail, and pour the waters of the Nile on every golden scale? How cheerfully he seems to grin, how neatly spreads his claws, and welcomes little fishes in with gently smiling jaws. I'm sure those are not the right words. I feel like if we grew up in Alice's time, we would know that poem, and we would know that
Maybe,
it's wrong.
Yeah.
Is that like S Club of that?
There must have been. That there was like, yeah, one.
Ain't no party like an S Club party. I'm sure that's not right.
I'm sure those are not the right words, said poor Alice, and her eyes filled with tears again as she went on. I must be Mabel after all. I shall have to go and live in that poky little house and have next to no toys to play with and oh, ever so many lessons to learn. No, I've made up my mind about it. If I'm Mabel, I'll stay down here.
Alice is a Tory, isn't
What?
she?
Yeah.
She's hating on Mabel and her poor little house. It'll be no use their putting their heads down and saying, come up again, dear. I shall only look up and say, who am I then? Tell me that first, and then, if I like being that person, I'll come up. If not, I'll stay down here till I'm somebody else. But oh dear, cried Alice with a sudden burst of tears. I do wish they would put their heads down. I'm so very tired of being all alone here. As she said this, she looked down at her hands, and was surprised to see that she had put on one of the rabbit's little white kid gloves while she was talking. How can I have done that? She thought. I must be growing small again. She got up and went to the table to measure herself by it, and found that, as nearly as she could guess, she was now about 2 feet high, and was going on shrinking rapidly. She soon found out that the cause of this was the fan she was holding, and she dropped it hastily just in time to avoid shrinking away altogether.
So the fan's magic.
The fan's-
So how come the rabbit, when he was fanning himself in his drag act, wasn't shrinking while he was doing that?
Look, I just read this thing. I'm not supposed to know anything.
I don't know either. That's
I'm questioning you like you wrote it.
Yeah.
Could you just tell me the significance of the fan? That was a narrow escape, said Alice, a good deal frightened at the sudden change, but very glad to find herself still in existence. And now for the garden. And she ran with all speed back to the little door. But alas, the little door was shut again, and the little golden key was lying on the glass table as before, and things are worse than ever, thought the poor child, for I never was so small as this before, never. And I declare it's too bad that it is. I've got myself stuck in a bit of an eternal loop here, because she's going to get big again and forget about the key. And
She's going to find more confectionery that does similar sort of stuff.
She would be the worst person to have on your Crystal Maze team. Like, literally, you'd be like, Alice, just pick the flipping key up. Open
You'd
the door.
be on the other side of the glass.
I left it on the
pick
table.
up the key!
pick up the key. For the love of God. You're like, you're going to get locked in.
Yeah.
Leave her in there.
Do you know what?
Anyway.
We'll
carry on without her.
Blessing in disguise.
As she said these words, her foot slipped, and in another moment, splash, she was up to her chin in salt water. Her first idea was that she had somehow fallen into the sea. And in that case, I can go back by railway, she said to herself.
That's not how it works, Alice.
I'm sorry?
You've got it wrong again.
Oh,
sorry.
Ocean Railway.
Yeah, those are trains. I mean, she's obviously thinking about her holidays at the sea. Maybe she goes to Brighton
Clearly,
or something, and
yeah.
she
She could get the
trains
train
home.
back home.
But I mean, you can't get the train from the middle of the ocean or the,
I don't
or the
think
channel.
I don't think she was getting that maths wrong for the first time. I think she is thick as mint, mate.
She's as thick as Mabel. That's who she is. Alice had been to the seaside once in her life and had come to the general conclusion that wherever you go to on the English coast, you'll find a number of bathing machines in the sea, some children digging in the sand with wooden spades, then a row of lodging houses, and behind them a railway station.
What's a bathing machine?
I have no idea.
Is that a shower?
Is that what she calls the sea?
Well, no, but she says bathing machines in the sea.
Large blue bathing machine.
What?
Maybe we have to look it up.
She
Maybe
did. She did like shut
Add it
up
to the
about
vocab
the
list.
railway though. She didn't like have some sort of weird Hogwarts Express going into the middle of the Mariana Trench. So at least she had us there, you know.
It's true. However, she soon made out that she was in a pool of tears, which she had wept when she was 9 feet high.
It's a thing.
It's a real thing.
It's a real thing. A bathing machine was a device popular from the 18th century until the 20th century to allow people to change out of their usual clothes. So it's essentially like a beach hut on wheels in the water.
A garden shed. Is what I'm getting
exactly.
from that.
It looks like a portaloo,
Right, good.
but
That
obviously
bloke
there's
looks-
a changing room in it.
That bloke looks like he's having a lovely time.
Well, why were they ever phased out? Because I'm always there, towel around my waist, doing the odd...
Well, yeah.
Right, that is cool. God, we are learning.
Yeah.
We are learning.
I wish I hadn't cried so much, said Alice as she swam about, trying to find her way out. I shall be punished for it now, I suppose, by being drowned in my own tears. That will be a queer thing, to be sure. However, everything is queer today.
The rabbit.
Good. What's that with the fan and the Duchess?
The Duchess.
That's just the mantra I've got in my head now. So whatever the rabbit does now, he set himself up for any word or phrase, and I cannot wait.
Yeah. Give him more lines, please.
Just then she heard something splashing about in the pool a little way off, and she swam nearer to make out what it was. At first she thought it must be a walrus or a hippopotamus, but then she remembered how small she was now, and she soon made out that it was only a mouse that had slipped in like herself.
Oh.
That's a little mouse. Would it be of any use now, thought Alice, to speak to this mouse? Everything is so out of the way down here that I should think it very likely it can talk. At any rate, there's no harm in trying. So she began. Oh, Mouse, do you know the way out of this pool? I am very tired of swimming about here. Oh, Mouse! Alice thought this must be the right way of speaking to a mouse. She had never done such a thing before, but she remembered having seen in her brother's Latin grammar a mouse, of a mouse, to a mouse, a mouse, oh, mouse.
What?
I think if we'd taken Latin, we might understand that.
Oh, it's
like conjugation,
Is
I
the
think.
different? To a mouse, of a mouse, like as in
I
as
see.
if it's like
So-
on, in, under, over,
She's
to, from.
She's
yeah.
decided to use the oh mouse conjugation
But, like-
of that word.
She's worried about offending the mouse, not if the mouse can speak.
She's worried about offending the mouse in Latin.
Right. Yeah, so she's got to go with the correct
This is
formal
a Catholic
greeting.
mouse.
Yeah. Benedict Mouse.
The mouse looked at her rather inquisitively, and seemed to her to wink with one of its little eyes, but it said nothing.
Sassy.
Queer.
Sassy and queer little
Saucy
mouse.
mouse.
Oh, mouse.
Oh, mouse.
Perhaps it doesn't understand English, thought Alice. I dare say
Yeah.
It's toy and mouth pequeño.
I dare say it's a French mouse. Come over with William the Conqueror. No, obviously, that is the natural
there they are.
conclusion there.
Don't surrender! There's King Harold there, they're all there, the lines are there, and he looks over, and there's William the Conqueror and a keen mouse.
a winking mouse as well. They'll never see us coming.
Cheeky wink. For with all her knowledge of history, Alice had no very clear notion how long ago anything had happened. So she began again. Où est ma chatte? Which was the first sentence in her French lesson book. Where is my cat? I know that one. The mouse gave a sudden leap out of the water and seemed to quiver all over with fright.
So it is a French mouse.
Well, I don't know.
Well, he understood that. He
Apparently.
understood cat.
Maybe. Oh, I beg your pardon, cried Alice hastily, afraid that she had hurt the poor animal's feelings. I quite forgot you didn't like cats. Now we've got a mouse here that
Well, he's
speaks.
going to have to be French.
Okay,
You had to do him Pig Panther.
okay. Not like cats, cried the mouse in a shrill, passionate voice. Would you like cats if you are me? well, perhaps not.
This is like Ratatouille. I love it.
Yeah, that's true.
Doing a little bit Lumiere.
Yes.
Well, perhaps not, said Alice in a soothing tone. Don't be angry about it. Yet I wish I could show you our cat, Dinah. I think you'd take a fancy to cats if you could only see her. She's such a dear, quiet thing, Alice went on, half to herself, as she swam lazily about in the pool. And she sits purring so nicely by the fire, licking her paws and washing her face, and she's such a nice soft thing to nurse, and she's such a capital one for catching mice. Oh, I beg your pardon, cried Alice again, for this time the mouse was bristling all over, and she felt certain it must be really offended.
So she nurses her cat.
Well, that might just be stroking. I don't know what the...
Yeah, it's probably just an old translation.
I mean, I'm hoping so, because when someone says nurses something, I'm thinking breastfeeding.
I don't think she's breastfeeding her cat.
Chapter 3. Dinah returns. I'm thirsty.
We won't talk about her anymore if you'd rather not. Oui, indeed, cried the mouse, who was trembling down to the end of his tail. As if I would talk on such a subject. Our family has always hated cats. Nasty, low, vulgar things. Don't let me hear that name again.
Can I just say, I'm loving, because you're doing these on the fly. It's not like you've read this before.
It's really enjoyable.
Really?
And I'm
haven't.
really enjoying watching you do the
Okay.
sassy French mouth.
Okay. The face is
Definitely
becoming-
irritable, though. Like
It's a little bit-
We
yeah.
can't question him.
I know. I won't indeed, said Alice in a great hurry to change the subject of conversation. Are you fond of dogs? The mouse did not answer, so Alice went on eagerly. There's such a nice little dog near our house I should like to show you. A little bright-eyed terrier, you know, with, such long curly brown hair. And it'll fetch things when you throw them, and it'll sit up and beg for its dinner and all sorts of things. I can't remember half of them, and it belongs to a farmer, you know, and he says it's so useful. It's worth £100. He says it kills all the rats and... Oh, dear, cried Alice, with a sorrowful tone. I'm afraid I've offended it again, for the mouse was swimming away from her as hard as it could go.
To be fair, you'd do that, wouldn't you?
Yeah,
I'm surprised it took him so long.
I know.
She was waffling.
I suppose she wasn't like measuring him or something. Or like, that's what she's been doing the whole time. Mr. Mouse, can I just 15 inches? That's almost 1 minute of the distance from here to the Antipodes. She's been that specific.
She really has. She's got the
Be
detail.
quite laissez-faire in this chapter.
Laissez-faire.
It's a little bit laissez-faire.
Oui, oui.
For the mouse was...
Yeah.
Just having deductions. I know I stand you.
For the mouse was swimming away from her as hard as it could go, and making quite a commotion in the pool as it went. So she called softly after it, Mouse dear, do come back again. We won't talk about cats or dogs either if you don't like them. When the mouse heard this, it turned around and swam slowly back to her. Its face was quite pale, with passion, Alice thought, and it said in a low, trembling voice, let us get to the shore, and then I'll tell you my history, and you'll understand why it is I hate cats and dogs. It was high time to go, for the pool was getting quite crowded with the birds and animals that had fallen into it.
Where are these animals coming from?
Around.
Yeah, exactly. It's
Thank
just
you for the
it's
sound
kinda
effect.
Yeah, I'd imagine there'd be quite a sound from that height.
No, I think,
yeah. Are they falling through the rabbit hole, or are they?
and I
just
think we
like...
definitely need some sound effects.
I'm
if you
imagining
could,
Pearl
Yeah, we can
Harbor.
add some.
Great.
Yeah.
As I introduce, can we have a little sound?
Oh, okay, go on.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Okay.
Okay, there was a duck.
I was expecting the drop sound. I was like, wee!
And a dodo.
This is good.
At a loss. A lorry.
This secure core vehicle is reversing.
And an eaglet.
An eaglet.
An eaglet. Good.
Yeah, that's fine.
And several other curious creatures.
Nailed it.
Ah!
Alice led the way, and the whole party swam to the shore. End of chapter 2. She's still not in the garden.
No.
That was quite a lot of faff.
Yeah, it was.
Well, because I think this chapter is the first one that like properly deviates from most adaptations. Normally, she does the little growy shrinky bit, and then she's
goes
off.
straight. Yeah.
And this is this.
This is like the waffle
pontificate.
chapter that pretty much every film
And
is
the
cut
next
out.
one, I think, is.
Oh,
quite
really?
waffly too,
Oh,
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
gee. But did you? Well, one thing I noticed. This is when we're getting very, very deep. The moment she starts shrinking, when she's getting all these like sort of quite condescending ideas about poor old Mabel, who's just
Ooh,
having a little
nice,
chill. So
yeah.
she's going like, "Oh no, pokey little house," and she licks cats, or I don't know. She's making up. I'm making up what she was saying,
Yeah,
but they're
yeah.
quite sort of not very nice. They're quite negative things about people, and she's thinking lower of people, and that's when she gets smaller. But when she was quite small, she's going like, "Oh, it's quite hopeless." So maybe there's something in like the size thing. I don't know.
It's true. I had no idea that. I always thought that she like didn't eat and drink all of the stuff, and that's why she kept growing and shrinking. But this whole fan thing was new to me. I didn't know anything about that.
Yeah, no, I didn't know that.
It's great.
I wouldn't be touching any other objects. If the fan does it, you just found it. It's like, what does this cannon do? Or like, it's the cannon of turning you inside out.
So what?
Boom! That was where we need a firework.
Yeah, exactly. So what? I mean, what's the point of this pool? Like, what's going to happen with all these? So we got what?
Well,
is
it must-
an eaglet,
There's lots of little birds.
dodo.
They're all birds.
They're
yeah.
all types of bird. Okay.
Yeah.
Apart from the mouse. The mouse is
the
the
mouse
only.
and then the birds.
Right.
Yeah.
So they're just falling out of the sky for some
Apparently.
reason.
They've
was
rocked
one
up
of them called a lorry?
a lorry, yeah.
Yeah.
A lorry.
I'm
Lory.
Yeah.
Lorry.
yeah.
Not a
I've
lorry.
not heard of it, but that's why I did.
A
that.
lorry.
No, I got it.
I
We
hope
got
it
it. We got the
stays
pun.
Well, actually,
yeah.
I-
No, I genuinely thought that's what it was.
No, I did.
You thought
There's some driver from Thetford.
And
there.
then,
It's like,
and then an articulated lorry falls out of the sky. No, actually, I didn't
Do you
read
think
this
this
bit.
has suddenly turned into Cars or something like?
Actually, I didn't read this bit, but there are two. There's a red lorry and a yellow lorry.
Oh, there you go. Is this where the
Oh, they're
tongue twister
testing
comes
you.
from? Red lorry, yellow lorry, red lorry, yellow lorry.
I don't know what a lorry is. It's a type of bird.
Yeah, I'm sure it
It's
is.
another
It's probably a
Google
little
as well.
songbird or something. So, do we think again that this is any kind of metaphor for anything, or do you think that literally it's just
I
you know,
think
she is just drowned
the tears
herself?
thing is like, yeah, like she's drowning in her own sadness. That's got to have some kind of significance. Like, as in, like, it's a metaphor not to wallow.
she's very preoccupied about how she's coming across to like the mouse, which seems quite significant for him to have put that in. He's sort of
Yeah.
going, oh no, now I've offended him about talking about dogs. So she's quite sort of introverted in that way.
Mm.
I don't know. That's I
She's
just
obviously
I just
showing
meant
that she's well, both immature and not self-aware, but then seems to then catch herself and then become a bit more self-aware of knowing what might upset other people, like the fact that she just kind of lets herself go up on a rant, but then kind of goes, "Oh crumbs, she's obviously got some social skills with
Yeah,
mice."
yeah. Well, apparently on this, I'm just looking over at the Spark Notes again. Apparently, the Sea of Tears is like a punishment for Alice's giving in to her own emotions. Apparently,
Wow.
so I think it's that whole thing of like self-wallowing or kind of thing of how like you can end up damaging yourself or making yourself worse by wallowing in kind of feeling sorry for yourself. And basically her changes in size are again meant to mirror the confusion that occurs with the transition from childhood to adulthood. That's kind of like, there seems to be this theme that's going through this first part, or even actually the whole book, because I think Alice gets bigger and smaller again later on. If the Gwen Stefani video is anything to go by,
which is what we all
she's wearing the house.
Oh yeah,
yeah, exactly. I have a feeling that Alice gets bigger and smaller one more time.
I think, yeah.
So I think it's meant to be this whole thing of being on the cusp of adulthood, or at the tail end of childhood, and not quite knowing your place in the world or how you fit into the world around you, and that kind of off how that can make you feel unsettled in your standing, if that makes any sense. But if you'd like to have your say about the chapter and join the conversation, then you can contact us on our email, which is thelazybookclub@gmail.com.
Or drop us a line on Twitter @LazyBookClubPod.
And it's exactly the same on Instagram @LazyBookClubPod.
So there we go. That was chapter 2. Join us for the next episode, which will be chapter 3. Do you want to give us the title for that, Josh?
Well, if you like. Chapter 3, A Caucus Race and a Long Tail.
Stay tuned for that.